Hi, I'm Elordi.
And I'm Rowan Nagar.
Welcome to The Long Tape. This week we're discussing the new Sofia Coppola movie, Priscilla, which is based on the relationship between Priscilla Presley and Elvis Presley and follows them across like a career period. Which probably should get out of the way is that I saw this movie about a month and a half ago, and I'm guessing you've seen it, a few hours ago?
Yep.
So yeah, if there's any specifics, you'll always divert to Rohan for accuracy, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that out of the way, what do you think?
I quite enjoyed it. I mean, enjoyed is not the correct word. I liked it a lot.
Right.
And it gave me another reason to hate on probably one of my least favorite movies of last year, couple of years ago. I forget.
Elvis, I don't know. I never saw it because it's the stuff I read.
Yeah, Elvis is like a objectively terrible movie, which I don't know how people just deluded themselves into liking. But yeah, in every way, this is kind of the most obvious rebuttal to whatever nonsense that movie was peddling.
Yeah, I mean, I've read stuff about that, and it's very clear. It was very clear to me that I was like, I'm not gonna touch this movie at all. But surprisingly, this movie did not like move me as I was like expecting it to. I felt like I kept waiting it for to engage me, like in a deeper fashion. It just like I was like, okay, now it's gonna happen. Now it's gonna happen. Like, but like it never like how like movies are like basically the collection of scenes, right? And the next scene builds on the previous one, the next scene builds on the previous one, and then as the scenes come together, like you feel like an emotion that's not possible with just like one scene. Like the collection of scenes makes the movie, right? And that never really happened for me. I just felt like everything was slightly like disjointed.
I don't know if you watched this movie called The Assistant. I think it was couple of years ago, maybe
That's
2,
the
3.
like Harvey Weinstein thing, was it?
Correct, yeah. It was the one that they kind of made around Harvey Weinstein, which is about this assistant who works at a movie production company, and which is run by someone like Harvey Weinstein, whom we never see. But basically, the entire movie is her doing menial jobs, but under this cloud of just paranoia and menacing like vibes the whole time. And I thought this movie kind of captured that tone. Like from the first scene, it was like quietly creepy, which builds over, an hour and a half, 2 hours into something.
Yeah, that's very clear. You just like for the first like I think fast 10 minutes or whatever, I'm shouting at the screen. I'm like, bro, parents, what is wrong with you? Why are you sending your 15-year-old daughter to like a rock star's house? Like, stop doing this nonsense. Wait, you're sending her to the US now? What is wrong with you?
Which is, and after the movie clocks it, right? It's not like they didn't know. They've already, obviously, it's very obvious that she shouldn't be there. And that's what the mother says also, like, you're not old enough to hang around.
Yeah, but the parents are like, I feel like care to like a point, and then after that point, the parents are like, why not?
No, but it's more sinister than just why not, right? Because it's almost like, not almost, they're literally turning a blind eye deliberately, right? They know what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not like she's going to come 10 years later and be like, this is what happened, I lied to you, whatever. They know exactly what's happening step by step. And they choose to send her to him for whatever reason. And it's pretty much the same thing that happened with those guys who accused Michael Jackson, right? If you watch that documentary, they were like, yeah, हमारे parents they drove us to his house when we were 6 and 7 and let us stay with him, in Neverland. And something very similar happens in this movie also, right? Which is just,
yeah, it's, in a way, like it's the parents like are trying, like initially they show like, apprehension, like you cannot go.
but literally 2
like,
seconds later,
even
like, haan jao.
2 seconds later, they're like, yeah, it's almost like subconsciously, like they're also pulled into his like, like rock star, whatever, like persona.
Yeah.
And they're getting like some like, like not visceral, what's the word? Vicarious, like, vibes of the daughter. Like if she is in the circle, we feel like more important or something.
We
Which
feel
is almost
more-
like never like touched upon in the movie, but it's almost like that's the vibe you're getting.
That's exactly what it is. And it happens multiple times. So the first time she's like, mujhe jana hai, and they're like, no, you're not old enough, but still go. Then it happens again. Then it happens for the third time. Right?
Yeah, they're like, no, Elvis's dad will take care of her. He'll always keep eyes on her. Bro, she's on a different continent.
But that's the sad part of this movie, right? It's not just Elvis who's abusing her. It's her own parents who kind of sent her to slaughter, right? No,
Yeah, it's like pimping her out.
fully. And that's the delicate kind of what I admired about this movie is like, obviously you're going to annoy Elvis apologists or Elvis fans. That's going to happen. That's not even up for debate. But then how to correctly portray her own complicated feelings about what happened, right? Because not only are you capturing what she felt as a little teenager, but then also what she felt when she was a little older and had more perspective to what she feels now as like whatever 70, 80 years old, you know, where it's like the scene in like May December. Did you watch May December?
I have, yeah.
So it's like that scene where the guy realizes what's been happening to him his entire life, right? And he's like, it crumbles before him, like his entire like reality crumbles before him.
It's interesting that you bring up May December, because like this is where like I like I'll compare the tones of the movie, and where Priscilla like didn't really like work for me is that initially when they're sort of showing like her perspective, right? Like obviously for a teenager falling in love with a rock star, like in your mind you're going fireworks are happening, right? And the film treats it as fireworks as well.
No, it doesn't.
Priscilla's mind.
It's not. It's creepy. It's always creepy
in her mind,
because
it's not creepy.
in her mind it's not. But then as a viewer, you're like, obviously you're a teenager. You think that
as a viewer you can understand what's happening is wrong, but the film treats that as if like, you know, this is like mind blowing, like she just had like a weekend in Las Vegas, and the tone of it and like the treatment of like from a soundtrack and like visual perspective, it feels like not like the right choice to me.
So not a single scene in the movie felt like they're trying to make it seem not as sinister as it actually is, because the first scene itself, they set the tone, and I think one of the first things that he asks her at the party is, how old are you? And when she tells him that she's in the 9th grade, he's like, oh, you're just a baby, right? And then he proceeds to try to like
call her up to the room.
Yeah, he does that, and that's the first scene. So उसके बाद जो भी हो रहा है picture में is clouded by that interaction, right? So the movie is kind of announced itself immediately that this is what we're about, and उसके बाद every subsequent conversation that they have highlights the age difference, right? Not just between her and her parents, but every conversation that Elvis has with her also. He's like, oh, I wish I met you earlier. When you'd seen you would have met my mother or something, you know. And then he's constantly talking about, will I succeed as a movie star, which implies that his music career has existed for years. It's all of it is just to highlight how young she is. She's too young to even fully understand who Elvis is, you know. So उसके बाद जो भी होता है is like fully creepy, you know. It's like not. I didn't feel that it could have very easily also just included an Elvis song or something, you know, just to be like, oh, but he's also really great at music, you know, he's doing all these weird things, but let's just also acknowledge the other side of him, which the world
but that's never deliberate, right? Is that they never show like Elvis's life like from his perspective. It's always from her perspective.
It's always
like he finds out about his affairs like through magazines because she's locked in a cage at home.
She's
not like go walking onto a set and finding out.
Yeah, and very quickly it escalates, right? She moves into the house and then immediately she's like, no, you can't even be seen outdoors.
Yeah. Like you want to work as like a hairdresser? Like no. He's literally like, sorry, he's like either that life or this life.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the movie is pretty clear about what it thinks of Elvis and what it thinks of Priscilla. Priscilla is what I'm more obviously impressed by because of just like what I said, right? Because her own feelings about Elvis change, and the movie kind of captures that pretty delicately. It does capture her fascination in the early days with him, which is true. Like, how will she deny it? She's like, I was whatever 15, 16. That's what I felt. But then you as a viewer, you're like, please don't go, you know? I mean, at least every sensible viewer is going to be like, please don't go. Yeah, that's what I also thought of in May, December, right? Where the guy's story is completely different tonally to whatever's happening with the two women.
Yeah,
right?
What I was trying to get to at that point was that May, December, like they use their sort of background score very well in that sense of like, dragging it up at points where you're like, there is no drama happening, guys. Because like they know how to like incite sort of like, I don't know, like ironic humor which like when you know, like you're like, this is a mundane scene. She just opened the fridge. Why are you getting like,
but
epic
May
photos?
December is also doing a little bit of meta commentary, right? On it's similar to Killers of the Flower Moon in a way, right? At the ending of Killers of the Flower Moon, where Scorsese like all this terrible stuff happened, and now you're watching it in a movie. That's weird, right? And I think the entire point of May December is also captured in that final scene, which is like you realize it's like a very crappy movie that they're making. And that in a way is the meta commentary that Todd Haynes is doing, right? Because he's like, it's a true story, it's a terrible tragedy, and we made a movie about it. The movie inside the movie is terrible, and here we're playing up the absurdity of the real life tragedy versus the entertainment.
They're making a TV movie. They're not even a big screen movie.
So is he essentially, right? He's making like a damn Netflix.
Yeah.
He's not making a Netflix when Netflix bought it, which is like adds to the commentary as well.
He I think he understands like his format.
Yeah. So he knows that essentially no movie in the world will perfectly capture the tragedy of what happened. Correct. So that is that's my reading of the weird tone of it, which is like full Karan Johar camp. But this one is like way more like, look at her face, look at what she's going through, bichari.
Yeah, so actually, like instead of May December or like The Assistant, actually I hadn't seen May December obviously because I saw this movie before that. But the movie I thought of the most after leaving Priscilla was actually Spencer, Pablo Larraín's like take on Diana.
Which I did not like.
Oh yes, I guess it's like this is our like split month. Archie's, Priscilla, and like Spencer. We're finding out stuff we're like on the other side of the spectrum about. Anyway, so I love that movie because like this one, what it does is like it trying to like portray, obviously like, it wants to like see the whole arc, right? Like of how they met, what she went through, like that transformation to then she becomes an adult. That's her coming of age and realizing that she's been in an abusive relationship and she walks away. What Spencer's approach is not to like do, we could have done that thing, we could have charted like the whole like arc of it with Charles and like her walking away. But instead it just it lasers it on like a weekend or like a 7-day whatever thing. And her last trip at Sandringham. And what I loved, well, outside of that was that how it put us in her sort of like point of view. Like you can feel the movies like her claustrophobia through the movie's cinematography even. Of like, the way she's like feeling all the time of like, how small her world is becoming, how everyone's encroaching on her world from like the royal family members to people outside trying to pick her photos, the tiniest thing, look, she can't even open her like curtains. So that kind of stuff, the small touches sort of really like added to my experience there, which I felt like when I was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, like, the treatment of like, I would have loved if that was done like that, because it felt every scene was building on the previous scene, which as I said before, I didn't feel in this one.
Yeah, there is, just on a basic level, that movie does condense the entire, like Diana's entire experience into that one weekend.
Yeah, not to say like that's the only approach possible. But yeah, after that approach, like the way it's shot, the way it's conveyed, I could appreciate that one more.
No, I enjoyed, for instance, in Priscilla, the way it was shot as well, like, because it feels like she's isolated in that house, right?
Yeah. They take the distance approach instead of like doing like claustrophobia as like Pablo Larraín. Coppola does the whole like, I think we see her full body a lot. It's almost like distant, and it's almost like trying to put her like a bird inside a cage, as you just said.
Yeah. We see like the empty spaces of that house. We also see her being segregated, right? Like it's not just isolation, but it's segregation.
Yeah. Even when like there are people around, like she's on her own.
Yeah. Then there are the multiple shots of just the opening and closing of the gates, right? Which is like super ironic. Like people are just there on the other side. They don't know.
That's like the real world is happening outside.
Yeah, and she can't, and there's that distance always. And obviously there is other touches, like the and this is a slightly humorous thing also, the gang of boys that he roams around with always.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think either of us, like, I'm sure you can't because you've seen it a long time ago. But even though I've seen it like abhi, I can't remember a single line that they said. No. It's just like one entity that moves in Elvis's orbit.
And I think that's what I'm trying to convey is that, like, it's almost like the protection squad around him, like the boys' locker room.
Exactly. It is the boys' locker, and it's very menacing. Yeah. Like when I think one of the first times that she comes to Graceland and she comes and sees him, he's surrounded by guys, and I'm instantly like, oh my god, she just walked into a den,
Yeah.
right?
And even
Because those
there are
guys are like,
women around as well eventually, but they're all like, Elvis age or above. Like they're not, so they look at her like in a distasteful manner. Like, why is a teenager here?
no, but there's also that's why I thought of the assistant, right? There's also like this open secret thing
Yeah.
where like they know what's happening.
Hmm.
She shouldn't be here.
They know what's
But
happening, but
none of
possibly
them-
like he's done similar things before her.
Correct. And they don't say anything, right?
Yeah,
Like they don't try to like send her away. Like none
Which
of
is why when the one of the scenes I possibly liked was when she goes in and starts talking to other women who work in like the office department of the Graceland.
Mhm.
And very quickly Elvis's father like shuts that out because he knows like if she starts talking to them, like it can unravel very quickly.
Yeah. Which is also, you get the sense that he's almost like saving her for marriage or something, which is what he tries to.
Yeah, it's very like in that sense, it's like super creepy, like grooming scenario. Like he just wants her as an object. Like he has no physical affection toward her for like I don't know 10 years or something.
उसको drugs देता है,
very few.
पूरा वो भी हो जाता है.
Yeah, that happens like last week of the weekend. He's like, yeah, take this. It'll help you like have a good weekend. Then take this because it'll help you sleep. And she's like, wait, what if I don't need it? No, take it anyway.
Which is, I mean, the quiet kind of just power of this kind of storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Because you get the full picture by the end. And the worst thing is that you know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know the details of what obviously happened, but then you get a sense of where things are headed after that first scene. And as like what you've dreaded the whole time kind of comes true is when you're like, oh my god, like she lost her entire childhood, this girl. And so many people were responsible for this, right? And obviously none of them, were punished for it. And even she...
And no one lifted a finger. If anything, like they were helping
exactly.
the person.
And even it's taken her, and this is obviously, she's some kind of a producer on this movie, right? And it's...
executive. Yeah.
So it's taken her entire life. This is her kind of telling her side of the story, which obviously we knew of. And everyone was like...
And like she doesn't have support for it fully, right? Like the script, from what I read, the script was getting like hate from like the daughter. Imagine like your own family is turning this.
But exactly, right? So for the longest time, even
like your dad is dead, your mother's alive, and you are like, bro, this is a bad movie. Like you're showing my dad in a bad light. Like, have you spoken to your mother? Like, why are you turning on her?
And this is objectively weird. Like, it's not like how do you justify it? You can't, right? If you like someone came to you and said, "Okay, I really love this person who I met when I was like 15," you're like, no, you were a child.
Which also aged up. Like when I was reading Wikipedia, apparently it was 14. Like she made it like 1 year older. Like that to make it even more. Like it's like 14. Like seems even young.
How do you defend it, right? Even if you're like, even if the person involved is like convinced that they were not, groomed, which obviously they wouldn't know. But even if they say that they weren't groomed, you're like, no, excuse me, it's illegal for a reason.
Yeah, because you don't know any better. You're a kid. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what's weird to me. It's like, abhi bhi someone could be like, oh, but like, how do we know types? But like, are you crazy or what?
And the insane thing is that a lot of people will see this movie and just like even forget the craft of it. They just start hating it and be like, no, what you're showing is too much.
But that's a Nepo argument, with like the Archies. Like they'll hate it because...
Like, they just, I guess it is like that in a way because it'd be like, how can someone so famous, how can it never have come out before? Why is it coming out now?
Yeah, but theek hai, wo to whatever. But I do agree with you that this isn't like top tier Sofia Coppola. Like she's obviously done like some of the greatest movies of like the last 20 years.
Yeah.
This is more like Marie Antoinette or something. Like
it's like The Killer. Like it's a minor effort in their filmography.
But I do feel that it has more to say than The Killer. Killer मुझे अभी तक समझ नहीं.
No, I'm not saying in terms of like thematic value. I just meant in terms of their filmography, where like it's like the median or middle.
Yeah, which is a great place to be. Like not everybody could dream of making something as good as Priscilla in their entire life.
Yeah, some people see the story and they make the Elvis movie.
Oh my god! Listen, that Elvis movie is to theek hai, but like if I just begin to in 10 seconds tell you the other nonsense that happens in it, So Elvis himself was kind of abused, right, by his whatever manager.
Yeah, which like very
And-
funny that like they basically pushed him out of the limelight in this movie. He never appears. Like there's no way that dude did not come to Graceland, right?
Yeah, no chance. But the Elvis movie is presented through the perspective of that creepy dude. So it's like this
That's
cycle of insanity. Anyway, and usme performances are just, I mean, you watch the Jacob Elordi ka performance in this, and then you watch Austin Butler in that. You're like, oh, so you're doing like a Saturday Night Live version of it.
Think you're in a sketch, bro.
Yeah. What else did I like? I like that dinner table shot that Sofia Coppola just stays on her face.
This you have to remind me. It's been too long.
So there's a dinner, like they have dinner at Graceland, and like all the boys' locker room stuff is happening. You know, it's loud and it's raucous.
What
And
moment
everybody's
is this thing?
talking.
Like at what point?
Early-ish,
Okay,
first act.
right.
And what happens is you hear the noise and the laughter and everything, but Sofia Coppola just stays on her face the whole time. And in just a span of like 10 seconds, she goes from like feeling like completely isolated in this large group to trying to fit in, to realizing that she can't fit in, to being terrified that she can't fit in, to suddenly realizing that, oh, she's not wanted, and then having that whole cycle again. So if she's like nominated for an Oscar, ye uska Oscar clip ho sakta hai.
Except as we know, any award show, they show the most dramatic part when the actor looks.
Which she
the
doesn't
most.
have in this, right?
No, she has one tantrum, right, where she throws something, which I'm sure happened at some point in the movie. So they'll show that.
Oh.
They always show the heightened part of the movie. I'm like, stop showing the worst part of the movie.
This is like not a single word, but like just 10 seconds of turmoil. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Right, time to wrap it up.
Yep.
Okay, that's all for this episode of The Long Take. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Threads at The Long Take Pod. You can write to us at thelongtakepod@gmail.com. Please leave us a rating and a review by this episode, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.